Notice the quality of your mind in this moment. Notice if it's any different than when you began the meditation. It might be more calm. It might seem more agitated, more busy. But it's helpful to check in with the mind, not sort of mindlessly practice mindfulness. We plunk down, we go for however long, and then we get up and go about our day. That's better than nothing. But take the attention at the beginning, whether you ring a bell or not, to just arrive. Cultivate the practice with as much focus and effort as you can. Finish the practice and take a few seconds to just check on the mind. Learn your mind. Don't just sort of do it willy-nilly. Again, that's better than nothing. But as you progress in your meditation, this checking in on the experience becomes very important. You want to become a really good scientist of your own mind. This will be very, very helpful when you run into a difficulty today or tomorrow and the mind starts to have a little banana attack. It just, whoa, here's the mind being consternated, making up stories, being very distressed. Can I interact with the mind and change the story or settle it down a bit or find productive ways to work with this unexpected or unpleasant event? So this is why in the big picture it's so important to know your mind, to watch the mind, to interact, to kind of dance with your mind. Otherwise it's like your mind's a big dog with a squeaky toy, and it grabs you. It's like whenever it wants, and it kind of throws you into the corner and lifts its leg and pees on your head or something. The mind is running the show if you don't engage with the mind. Get to know that dog, love that dog, flow with the dog, cultivate obedience and joy and play instead of just hanging around in your life. Well, the mind runs the show, and when the mind becomes extremely distressed about something or angry or hurt feelings or worried or you get bad news, it can just grab you and ruin the day. I'm not a fan of this statement. I've probably used it. I don't think I use it now, and if I did use it, I'd catch it and change it. But I'm having the worst day today. Or I got it on the wrong side of the bed, or today's just a crappy day. It's like 11 a.m., okay, so you've already decided, mind, that because of some things that happened, I guess, since getting out on the wrong side of the bed, you were out of milk, and then you tripped and stubbed your toe, and then we're almost out of gas, and it was inconvenient, whatever happened. But it's just I'm having a lousy day. No, you're having a lousy mind moment right now, and you have some say. Ultimately, you have complete say, but we're a lot of rookies, so we have some say in the next moment. Do we want to extend the yuckiness of this moment into the next moment? Well, we've already decided the whole day's a write-off, and it's 11 a.m. How about, this mind state's unpleasant. Okay, that's a wise statement. Probably an accurate statement in that moment, if the mind state is unpleasant in that moment. But instead of I'm having a terrible day, or why is this, the mind's unpleasant. There's anger, or there's fear, there's hurt, or there's worry. Okay. Can you bring some grace to the mind? There, little dog, it's okay, have a biscuit. Can I scratch your chin? Can I give you a hug? Want to go for a walk? Whatever it is, can we interact with the mind state, knowing we can change the state? I know, because I know so many of you, how many dog lovers are in the room. And I mean, if your dog's a little mopey and you say, want to go for a walk? Everything changes, right? You can do this with the mind. I don't mean to make that sound easy. It's not easy for me at times. Of course not. When the mind is upset, worried, consternated, there's difficult things happening in my world and the world of people I care about in the body. We're not enlightened beings, at least I'm not. We're not able to flow with every discomfort with grace, but we can cultivate flowing better with some of the discomforts more often with grace. So let's talk a little bit more, or I'll talk a little bit more about about the qualities of mind that the Buddha suggested we cultivate. What are the habits of the dog you want to reward, cultivate, and increase? Probably not the digging holes in the garden. You don't want to encourage that part of the mind. But you might want to encourage the cuddly, loyal, faithful parts of the mind, and so on. I'm going to talk about the 7 factors of enlightenment. These are 7 qualities of mind, 7 qualities of meditation that the Buddha focused on as qualities that we are instructed and invited to cultivate. So if you've got a backyard that's a ruddy mess, you've moved in and it's an overgrown mess, garbage dump, weeds, etc. You'd like to turn it into a pleasant space. It's a fairly simple thing to do. You put in some effort to pull out the stuff you don't want and to cultivate and water and fertilize and nurture and tend to the things you do want. This is what you can do with your mind. Cultivate these 7 factors I'm going to introduce today and try to, it's like a triple negative, don't cultivate the things you don't want. Don't water the grievances. Don't water the grudges. Don't, get more seed and scatter more resentment. Don't focus on and nurture unintentionally. There's no idiotic masochists in the room. None of us intentionally water the negative stuff and grow ugly, nasty mind weeds. But if you're not paying attention, you may be doing it a lot more than you think. Oh, I can't believe she does that. I can't believe she's so self-centered. And she just can't see that there's other people who have schedules and maybe their lives matter too. She's always like this, and on and on and on and on. There may be some truth to that narrative I just spun. But you're watering the negative weeds in your mind by spinning it and churning it and keeping with it instead of going, okay, I'm feeling very frustrated by my friend's behavior. In my opinion, at times they're self-centered and they're not very aware. But I know in the bigger sense, they're also a very generous person. They often come over and take care of the cat when I'm away. I need to remember the whole of this person, not the part that is currently triggering me. I'm not going to water the weeds. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to calm down. I'm going to have a nice cup of tea. And then reapproach my mind's opinion of my friend. That's beginning to water some of the positive, beginning to plant. And I believe it's a biblical quote. I'm sure many of you know, but as you sow, so shall you reap. Right? What we put out, we are going to get back. Buddha might call that karma. I don't care what you call it. Cause and effect, consequences, psychological conditioning. But there is a relationship between our habits, our choices, and what we focus on, and what we get back. So are you going to focus on the things that were unpleasant or difficult this morning? Or are you going to choose to focus on the ones that were either neutral or pleasant? 7 factors to cultivate, 7 flowers of mind to water. The first one I'll introduce is one many of you are very familiar with, at least the word, and that is mindfulness. This is only one of 7. Take note, please. One of 7 factors the Buddha said we need to develop. Modern secular mindfulness tends to narrow this teaching down to only 1. Better than nothing, terrific, great, develop mindfulness. Yes, I'll define mindfulness a bit more in a moment. But it is only one of 7. If you want a broad, rich mind experience, if you want your meditation to start to take off, to take flight, to deepen and richen, and become the mind, instead of just being mindful, become rich, joyful, curious, and alive, then you need to practice all 7. Look for all 7 of these factors in the meditation. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about mindfulness and then, of course, the other 6. But I want to draw a diagram for you. I want you to imagine a simple teeter-totter. So you've got the fulcrum point and you've got 3 factors of mindfulness on one side and 3 factors on the other. And then there's the middle balance point, the 7th. That's mindfulness. This is helpful to think of it this way sometimes, especially for those of you that have been meditating for a while and really want to bring some observation of these factors to your meditation practice. Mindfulness is the balancer between the 3 active factors I'm going to talk about, active, energetic, more effortful, more to develop factors, and the 3 peaceful, tranquil, calming factors. So we have 3 active, 3 more passive, and the 7th, which is mindfulness. What is mindfulness? Everybody thinks they know. In my opinion, very few do really know what mindfulness is meant to be. Mindfulness is a translation of the Pali word sati, and the word is better translated as recollectedness, but the word mindfulness is fine. Being mindful means many things, but for today's discussion, it means becoming as aware as we can possibly be about what is actually happening. Being mindful of, right now, the feeling of my foot on the floor and the slight coolness of the floor between the skin of my foot, the sock, and the floor. Being mindful that I'm moving my hand in these incremental ways I didn't necessarily intend to do as I spoke. Being mindful of some movement in the back of the room when I open my eyes, people shifting their heads, moving. Being aware of what's actually happening. When we practice mindfulness, we often do it with breath. There are many, many other forms, but we often do it with breath as a practice training to say, can I be as mindful as possible, ideally fully attentive, fully aware of what's actually occurring in this present breath? So another way to approach this might be to say, well, what is the opposite of mindful, or what is non-mindful? What is that like? Well, that would be la la la, I'm planning on my grocery list, and la 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 la, and oh, maybe one day I'll buy another house, and la 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 la. And that isn't what's actually happening. There's no direct reality to those thoughts. They're thoughts, but you're not buying your grocery list right now. You're sitting in the Rotary Hall. You're not buying another house or becoming an astronaut or whatever right now. So that's mindless, arguably, because it's not currently occurring. It's not real. I'm not saying it's bad to daydream and plan and think about things. That has value. None of us would have got here if we hadn't done that. You'd be sitting at home in your present breath until you died. I mean, that's not helpful. So there's nothing wrong with planning. But we want to plan when we wish to plan. When planning is helpful, when we choose to plan. Not when we're choosing and attempting to be aware and mindful of what's actually happening. When we're planning, when we're attempting to be mindful of breath, or this conversation, or this beautiful meal I'm eating, then we're not having a direct, full experience of life. I want you to hear that. When we're thinking of something else other than what's actually happening, we're not having a direct, full experience of life. We're living a black and white life. The color's gone. How many spectacular meals, or just lovely meals, your mom's shepherd's pie that you love, have you eaten in your life mindlessly? Oh, this is really good, Mom. So anyway, then after that, he said this. And then I'm thinking, maybe he's not the right guy for me. Did you really taste the meal? No. I'm extremely guilty of that. I struggle with being a mindful eater. It is not a strength of this being. So often, delicious meal, it's so good, and then it's gone. I enjoyed the first mouthful or two, and then I just kind of hoovered it. And mindfulness means you experience what you're experiencing. It doesn't mean you do everything super slow. We do everything super slow often on retreat as a training to deliberately start to break down and notice what that's really like. But if we ate all our meals like that, we'd get fired because our lunch break would be 90 minutes long. We can't slow motion our life, but we slow motion in retreat often to train that mindfulness, that direct experience of what's occurring. So when we speed the pace up again, it's very possible with more training to be rapid and mindful. To be in a hurry and walking super fast to an important engagement, and being very mindful and very aware and very present and not at all anxious. But it takes some training. So mindfulness the message I want to give across this morning is that mindfulness is being directly involved in what's happening and experiencing it. Really tasting that chocolate truffle. Instead of going, mom, that was good. Really noticing your friend's eyes when you're talking to them. Connecting with a moment of actually experiencing this little contact between you and I. Instead of, mindfulness. Show up and experience what's happening. There's the fulcrum on our teeter-totter or seesaw. I'll talk about the 3 active factors, and then I'll talk a bit about the 3 more passive or revealed factors. But these 3 active factors, I want to invite and encourage all of you to start cultivating these in your meditation. Start watering these moments. Start looking for these 3 factors as you meditate, because they will brighten the meditation, and frankly, they'll make it more enjoyable. And in case you haven't noticed, meditation doesn't always feel very enjoyable. It can feel very dull, very restless, very unpleasant. I hate meditating. Clearly nobody resonates with this at all. Like, really, why am I doing this? It's so weird. So it's very helpful to not just be a dry mindfulness meditator. And that's almost a little controversial of me to say, except it's direct Dharma from the Buddha, because of secular mindfulness. And when I say secular mindfulness, I mean the practice of mindful breath meditation divorced from any Buddha Dharma teaching. That is not a bad thing. I support that movement. I still write for Mindful Magazine, which is a secular mindfulness magazine. If I didn't think it had value, I wouldn't write for them. But I'm a Dharma teacher. I'm a Buddhist meditator. Mindfulness is just a tool. It's a useful tool, but it will not liberate you from suffering on its own. It will not improve your life in the ways Dharma and the 7 factors of mind can improve your life. So, mind blower, mindfulness is only one of 7. Let's get real about the other 6. The first 3 are the active factors, and they are, I'll list them and then I'll teach a bit about them. They are curiosity, enthusiasm or effort, and pleasure or bliss. Let's look for those 3 things in our mind, in our life, in our conversation, and in our meditation. The first, curiosity. Well, what does that mean? It means what you would think it would mean, which is get interested in the breath. Get interested in the mind's working. Get curious. And most of us are pretty poor at doing that when we plunk down diligently because we said we should. And we do our breath. Do our breath. And if we're really, being tight and good and disciplined, we really get some clear moments of just noticing breath without distraction. But are you curious? Possibly and probably not, unless someone brings this factor to your attention. Get really curious about the sensation of each breath. I mentioned a few things in the introduction here. How long or how short is this particular inhale? What is the length of the gap between the end of the inhale and the beginning of the exhale? Can I discern the exact microsecond where a gap turns into the beginning of an exhale? Does this particular breath feel warm and juicy and happy? Does it feel cold and detached and clinical? What is the emotional tone of this breath? You wouldn't necessarily ask all of these questions, although they might be helpful in the beginning to train the mind to look with curiosity. It's more, we want to get to where we show up for the breath like it's a television station, and we go, okay, what's up today with this breath right now? Noticing the quality of breath, noticing more importantly, but these are, we do breath to study mind, noticing the quality of mind. Mind's very restless. Oh, how curious. Okay, back to breath, back to breath. Curiosity. I invite you to, in your meditation, we'll practice for 5 minutes or so at the end, and I'll remind you to do this. Just get curious. What is this like right now? As though it's the most important thing in the world. as though this breath is life or death, which eventually one of our breaths will be. Breath's pretty important when you're suffocating, isn't it? Breath's pretty important when you're having an asthma attack, or you're under the water because a wave's pulled you under and you haven't yet been spat up into air and you can't breathe. Boy, oh boy, we get curious about breath right then. Boy, oh boy, do we focus on breath right then. We've all had some variation of that. Even waking up with the covers over your face and feeling like you're suffocating. Breath becomes very important. The rest of the time we ignore it, more or less. So make it interesting, but not because you're in crisis. Make it interesting, but not because you've been sucked under by a wave's undertow. Just decide to be curious. Now, in a bigger sense, be curious about your mind. Be curious about your life. Oh, so often we just kind of phone our life in somehow. We're busy, right? There's a lot to do. The to-do list of this cumulative group of people today would be staggering if we put together all the things we're intending to do and will probably execute today. It's pretty astounding, and I'm not being at all facetious. The stuff that I've done this morning before I got here, it's a lot of stuff. How often do we kind of do a day and we get our stuff done? But were we curious? Did we be mindful at the grocery store? And I don't mean grapes. That's zombie mindfulness. What I mean is, you might get your grapes rather rapidly because you have to get to class on time. But you can do it with mindfulness. You can look. You can. Stop. Check in. What would be a nice ingredient for? It's a quality of curiosity. A quality of mindfulness and curiosity makes the world go round in a more pleasant way. Instead of just helter-skeltering through our day, falling in bed exhausted, and we're missing our life. Most of us, myself included too often, are missing our lives. We're doing them, but we're not inhabiting them. How much did you really enjoy that cup of tea with a friend yesterday? How much did you enjoy work yesterday? Or did you just kind of, do what you had to do, even if you like what you do? Were you really curious? Were you engaged with it? Sometimes I'm not. And what do you know? On the days or moments or hours where I'm more curious about the work I'm engaged in, whatever that work is in that moment, it's more pleasurable, which is the next factor. So we've got mindfulness in the middle. We've got curiosity. We've got enthusiasm. I'm going to double back to that one. And we've got pleasure. Pleasure or bliss or happiness. There's various translations of the word. One of the words that's used there is my dog's name, as many of you know, sukha, is this quality of bliss, pleasure, or joy mind. So, how often in your meditation do you experience pleasure? Sometimes, maybe, for a little bit, for a few minutes. Sometimes, when the mind starts to settle and go deep, it's very pleasant for the whole sit. Some of you haven't experienced that yet. Many of you have. Where you're on a retreat or even at a morning like this, and the meditation's quite delicious. You settle in, you begin to pay attention to breath, and in a few moments, doesn't matter how long, might be 20 minutes, might be 20 seconds, but the mind starts to settle and focus because of training, usually, because you've been meditating more and putting more hours in and practicing more, and the mind's more biddable and more flexible. And you sit, and it's just like, It's not a big struggle. The mind still gets distracted or daydreams, but it's lighter, it's less sticky, and daydreaming, hang on, back to the breath. There's a pleasure to it. There's a deliciousness to the mind, either just very subtle, very pleasant, but a touch of pleasant, like just above neutral, just kind of, or really yummy pleasant. The mind feels good, and the bell rings, and you don't move. You don't move because you'd rather be still with this lovely, pleasant mind state than get up and go for a walk or make a cup of tea or go to lunch or whatever. And you just stay. And when I'm teaching retreats, one of the clues that someone's meditation is going quite well is they don't leave the yurt or the hall when the bell rings. They stay, usually with a bit of a goofy grin on their face. Just kind of, And I usually tiptoe around them and head out because I know, and it's not always the case, that for many of them, the meditation's going deeper. It's pleasant. They're having pleasure in the mind, and they want to explore it more. They're curious. Hear the factors and how they dance. They're having pleasure. Maybe it's fairly new to have pleasure in the meditation. It's usually just this death march till the bell. And there's pleasure, and then they're curious, and they're kind of watching the quality of mind, and even thinking, wow, why is it easy today? This feels good. Wow. Okay, anyway, I'll stay with it. Curiosity, pleasure. Pleasure, curiosity. Cultivate these. Don't wait around for them to show up. You can. If you just do mindful breath practice, these qualities will eventually start to show up some of the time. But if you want better, faster results, and I suspect you do, look for these qualities. Find these qualities. Go on a hunt for these qualities. The mind's kind of grumpy, the body's sore and tired. This is a slog, this is a slog. Oh wait, I'm going to get curious. I want to get curious. Whatever, I'll get curious. I don't want to get curious. Well, I'm curious that there's all this resistance in the mind. That's interesting. Okay, let's try to do breath. Breathing in, breathing out. Okay, look for pleasure. Are you kidding me? This sucks. Okay, hang on. Fair enough, not having a good time right now. What kind of pleasure could I find? What is the teeny tiniest pleasure I could find? Oh, that breath wasn't so bad. That was okay. Can I look for pleasant? Can I find any pleasant? And you look, and you don't always find. But then you might start to redefine pleasant, because we've got an idea what pleasant might be. Like pretty darn nice, maybe. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a little bit of peacefulness in that breath. That when you investigate it with curiosity, that was sort of pleasant. There was less pushing, less striving, and that felt a little bit pleasant. Keep looking. I guarantee you, if you practice, I'm not going to guarantee it if you don't meditate and practice and put some effort in. That's the third one we're going to get to in a sec. That you will find pleasure in the mind. And you will, and a whole bunch of you have experiences where the whole 45-minute sit or hour-long sit is really pleasurable. Little like, maybe a bit of a sore elbow and this and that, but it doesn't even matter. Because the mind's like, yum, 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 yum. Sore elbow doesn't matter. Mind feels so good. One of the translations is pleasure. Another, I said, is bliss. Real bliss in the experience of the mind. So look with curiosity for pleasant in the experience of meditating, in the single breath. And I said the third one is effort or enthusiasm. It has other translations. Determination, the word is virya or virya, it's spelled with a V. And this is pretty much as simple as it sounds. Bring some effort to the meditation. Don't just be a sloppy, lazy, passive mindfulness meditator who goes plunk, bing, I'm done. Bring a bit of effort or a lot of effort. You know it takes effort. You know this isn't easy. You know that the mind wants to run around and do its own darn agenda, which is not the agenda you're often inviting it to do in meditation, which is saying, mind, could we please focus on the breath? No! Could we please focus on the breath? No! Right? A bit more effort. Could we please focus on the breath? No! Come on now. Let's try. How about for one breath? Well, okay. Effort. Effort. Clearly none of this resonates with anyone. Our minds are pesky little beasts. Effort to say to oneself, I'm going to practice this breath with diligence. Really focus. Don't be relaxed, tired, and sloppy. If you're tired, you're tired. You can still bring effort to a tired mind. We do it when we go to work when we're tired. We make effort anyway. We make ourselves go and do the task. You can do this in meditation as well. Effort, enthusiasm, energy, determination. Gee, what do you know? Like almost every other thing that matters to us that we achieve or yield positive results from, we generally don't get it by accident. It's usually because we put in some effort, determination, enthusiasm, and energy. So tune yourself up if you need tuning up and be more diligent about the meditation. Practice more. Probably many of the folks here, and you don't have to out yourself. I'm not looking at anybody. I'm looking at the ceiling on purpose. Probably many of the people here don't meditate very much. That is what it is at this time. But what would it be if you made the diligent, energetic effort to decide, I'm going to have a daily-ish meditation practice, 4 or 5 days a week, because I'm a realist and we live in the real world, and some days get out of hand and crazy and we don't quite get to what we intended to get to. So what if you decided 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, even 5 minutes, as close to every day as I can, I'm going to practice. That's a diligent, energetic, enthusiastic second factor of enlightenment thing to do. And it will get you somewhere. There are people in this room who've been meditating an hour a day almost every day for a few years and who don't have time or funds or ability to go on retreats, but they're doing daily practice diligently and well, and they're getting extraordinary results in their meditation. Way more pleasure, way more curiosity, way more tranquility, concentration, and equanimity, which are the latter three we're going to talk a bit about, because they're being diligent. They're applying this second factor of enlightenment. The reason I'm saying second is they're usually in the order, in an order of 7, and this one comes second. I'm mixing them around because I want you to have this fulcrum idea, because it's really important. 3 active, mindfulness is the middle one, and then 3 that are more passive or a result of. This will help your meditation if I lay them out this way. So we've got curiosity, we've got pleasure, bliss, enjoyment, and we've got effort, usually taught in the order curiosity, effort, and pleasure. Doesn't matter one bit. 7 pieces of a pie, cultivate all of them. Mindfulness, I've talked a bit about. I want to again emphasize these 3 on this side of the teeter-totter are active, that you look for them, you cultivate them, you do them. You make that curious intention, you look for that pleasure, you cultivate pleasure by noticing the one moment that feels nice, even if the next 8 moments don't feel nice, and you bring that enthusiasm. Work harder, frankly. Be more determined, be more strict in a kind way with your mind and your meditation. Try to be mindful if you can. I can't yet, but I try. Try to be mindful all the time. Be mindful when you're having a difficult conversation. Be mindful when you're at the movies. Be mindful when you're at work or driving home. Pay attention to what's actually happening. Driving's a really kind of scary one. Even before cell phones in the car, we often were pretty mindless when we drove. We were aware enough to, navigate obstacles and to stay in the correct lane, but often we daydream and think and plan, and we wouldn't know where the last, 6 kilometers went. Oh my goodness, I'm already at the store, right? Are we actually aware of driving as we drive? We're aware enough we don't crash most of the time, but what would it be to be really deeply mindful of driving? Just driving, just the direct experience of driving, with some curiosity, some effort, and some pleasure. It applies everywhere, not just on the chair or cushion. So the 3, when I'm calling passive factors, all I mean by that is that we don't so much actively cultivate these 3, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. They're more an outcome of cultivating the other 4. Bringing effort to the meditation, curiosity to the breath and the mind, looking for the pleasure, being mindful, mindful, mindful. When we develop these sort of 4 muscles, what tends to grow and strengthen are these 3 beautiful qualities of mind: tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. Tranquility is, as the name would imply, a sense of tranquil, peaceful grace in the mind. Just a lovely, calm, unperturbed feeling. Tranquility is such a gorgeous English word, Wouldn't you like to feel tranquil? Yes! Unperturbed, like a pond that is smooth and still. Unruffled. But there's a quality of pleasure to tranquility as well. It's a very pleasant, tranquil feeling. The mind, even when things happen in the meditation or in life, off the cushion, so to speak, the mind doesn't freak out as much. It's more grounded, more stable, And tranquility starts to develop the more you practice mindfulness and the more you practice meditation. And you'll notice, the mind's just a little less freaking outish. Something might happen that's frustrating. You're going to get a ferry today and it gets windy again and they cancel the ferry. It's inconvenient. It's not what you planned. And the mind can be quite ruffled and quite freaked out. Or if you're in a fairly tranquil overall state, it'd be like, oh, darn, okay. Well, that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. What will I do instead? Tranquility is a little bit, especially if you're not an advanced meditator yet, I hope you all will be, it can be a little hard to develop tranquility. If you've got some real ballast in your practice, you've logged quite a few hours, you might be able to kind of take a chaotic mind and smooth it to tranquility. But for a lot of us, it's really work with the curiosity, the pleasure, be mindful, be diligent, do the work, and tranquility then starts to follow, starts to appear. It's like you're cultivating the flowers you've got, and the late bloomers start to then arise. You can think of this tranquility as a late bloomer there. Tranquility, and then the next is concentration. And concentration relates a lot, in my view, to that effort or enthusiasm piece, because concentration takes effort a lot of the time. Unless you're doing something super interesting and compelling, you're composing a piece of music, you're drawing or writing, you're making love, you're involved in a really tricky project you find fascinating, unless what you're doing is really compelling, it's often fairly hard to concentrate deeply. And breath isn't very compelling, it seems. When you develop more curiosity and pleasure, breath becomes very compelling, but it mostly seems a bit dull or neutral. So it can be difficult to concentrate on it, as most of you experienced in our short sit. It wasn't very easy to go, boom, I'm concentrated on just the breath. I'm undistracted. That's concentrated means not distracted. Locked and loaded on this object. Can we concentrate super hard on this round bell? Yes, we can. It means we mostly let everything else go into the background and we go, boom, I'm concentrating on this circular bell. But it's difficult to do that for any sustained period of time, right? So concentration is both active and passive in the way I'm presenting this today. You will benefit from actively cultivating concentration, like applying more effort, that second factor. I'm going to really pay attention to this breath. Yeah, but I want to think about, nope, back to the breath. Yeah, but how about, nope, back to the breath. That's the effort one. Cultivating concentration. But it's really the effort that's active, and the concentration starts to come out of applying more effort. Instead of taking our meditation period, as many of us do, I've done, as an excuse to plan something or daydream, it's like, oh good, I have 20 minutes, I can let my mind run free. That's not meditation though. That's a lovely thing to do if you want to settle down in your favorite chair with a cup of tea and decide to let your mind run free. Please do, but don't call it meditation, because that's crap. It's not meditation. It's letting your mind run free, and I do that, and it's helpful. Especially as a creative person, I let my mind run free and I come up with an idea for an article. Great! But if I'm meditating, that's cheating to let the mind run free, because I'm meant to be cultivating concentration and mindfulness. So when I notice my mind's been running free for 3 or 4 minutes of the 30-minute sit, I go, okay, and effort, second factor, to concentrate, sixth factor. They dance, they interweave. And the seventh factor is this beautiful quality of mind and life and heart called equanimity, which is not a word we use in English very much. I think it's a very old English word, perhaps, from when the translators in the 150 years ago were translating these words. And we can think of equanimity as a quality of non-reactivity, of gracefulness, of patience, and of a real acceptance of the way things are in the moment. So this is a key. Really accepting the way things are, whether or not they're pleasant, whether or not you like them. And I often quote or refer to that beautiful piece of teaching, the Serenity Prayer, that says, God, grant me the courage to change the things I can, the willingness or something, Wisdom, thank you. To accept the things I can't. Well, I thought it's the wisdom to know the difference.
To accept the things I can with strength to, oh my God.
Exactly, something like that. The courage to change the things I can to, and the something, grace maybe. Accept the things I can't, and the wisdom is the third one, not the second, because it is to know the difference. Essentially, what is that saying? It's saying equanimity. Change what we can, accept the things we cannot change, and be wise enough to know which is which. Equanimity from a Buddhist perspective says, right now, something bad is happening. Let's say someone you love is dying. Something sad and impermanent is happening. No, you can't change that. Have the wisdom to know this is one you cannot change. So accept what you cannot change. That's equanimity, and it's tough. Equanimity has always been the most difficult factor for me personally. I'm a go-getter, I'm a changer, I'm a make the world a better placer like most of you. So if something isn't right, I want to fix it. I want to make it better. I want to save every abandoned animal in the world. Guess what? I can't. Equanimity says I have to accept the sad reality that there are abandoned animals in the world. But it doesn't mean I can't make the change I can change. I support the SPCA monthly with money. I adopt critters that are from the SPCA or rescue societies. I do the little tiny bit I can, while equanimity teaches me to accept the things I can't change. I can't save every animal in the whole world. My house isn't big enough. Even my heart's not that big. None of our hearts are that big. And equanimity is hard, right? That's why I said it's the hardest one for me. Because I don't want to accept things that are unacceptable. None of us do. We're all very good-hearted people in this room. We don't want to accept starving kids in our school districts. Duncan has a school where I'm from where 45% of the children come to school on Monday and their last meal was lunch on Friday. In our beautiful little valley. Right here. I don't want to accept that, but it's true. But I can also see and contribute to and help the grassroots organizations that are creating hot breakfast and hot lunch programs every day at that school based on volunteers' donations. Yay! But equanimity says, guess what, beautiful people in this room who want the world to be better, who want children fed and animals loved and racism abolished and sexism and homophobia abolished and love and compassion to flourish. Equanimity says we're not there yet. And we have to accept the truth of the things we cannot change so that we can change the things we can. Because if we focus on the things we cannot change alone, we'll end up in despair and we'll give up. Because there's a lot to feel despair about in your own personal world and in the larger world. Equanimity says, look, it's not good yet, but we can make change. Equanimity says it's a quality of mind that accepts the truth of what is. But it's not a passive or, what's the word I'm looking for? Nihilistic thing. This is why equanimity was tough for me. I misunderstood it in earlier days in my Dharma work and study. I thought it meant kind of give up, like accept that, oh well, things are crappy. So be it. I'm a Buddhist, I have to accept it. That's because I misunderstood. I didn't understand until I practiced more with it that by accepting the truth of what we don't like, it empowers us to be able to take action not from despair and not from anger and not from reactivity or hate, but from love and grace. This is really tough. I'm going to make compassionate action to make the change I can make. The quality of equanimity in a much more simple, direct way in your meditation itself, say you're doing a 40-minute meditation sit, the quality of equanimity can come in when the mind is having a tough time with the meditation. You say, well, okay, the mind's hating meditation right now. The mind's very busy. I'm bringing it back to the breath. I'm trying to apply curiosity and effort, and it's not listening. Okay. Instead of being angry, disappointed, or worried, or defeated, that the mind is very restless, accept this is the state of the mind right now. And then apply this curiosity. Apply this search for the pleasurable quality of mind. Apply a bit more effort with the cuckoo brain mind. Try to calm it a little. Equanimity will free you. It will free you to act compassionately, because until we accept the truth, we're fighting the truth. And when we're fighting the truth, we're not getting anywhere. It's like I moved my partner's car in the snow because I needed to clear room for my patients in my parking area. And I moved his car. I thought I was being diligent, and I dug out two, places for the tires to go, ruts or something. And I drove the car in there, but it got stuck anyway. Didn't really matter because we don't need to use that car right now, but it got stuck anyway. Okay, well, that wasn't what I planned, but it's stuck. Equanimity says, okay, it's stuck. If I need to act to move the car out, I'll do something, but if I can accept it and leave it at where it is, it's okay. So despite our effort, things don't always go the way we want. Ever notice that? Ever notice that? Yeah. Equanimity says, I got to start with reality, that's all. I need to start with the way things are, not the way we want them to be. The beautiful thing is when we accept the way it is, it can, as I keep saying, free us to help move things more towards a wholesome place. The 7 factors, mindfulness in the middle. These 3 active factors I strongly encourage you to play with in your meditation. Have some fun looking with curiosity at the breath, at the mind. Have some fun looking for moments of pleasure, pleasantness, or bliss. Have some fun applying a bit more effort, not being a sloppy meditator. And then notice whether the mind feels more or less tranquil at any moment in the meditation. You might have 2 or 3 minutes of tranquility and then and get curious about that. Notice if the mind concentrates better as you put more diligence and curiosity into the meditation. Notice whether you're a little more able to just accept what's happening in the meditation and the mind with equanimity, with grace, instead of being upset with the mind, just going, wow, that's what's happening, and back to curiosity. If all of us would cultivate all 7 factors, our minds would start to flower like a beautiful garden and be a really pleasant place to hang out. Not the toxic waste dump of the yard we inherited, but this beautiful space we've cultivated with things we enjoy, that we value, that we think are important, that are in alignment with our values as a person, that are in alignment with our values in the world. That's the garden I want to hang in. How about you? There's a teacher, Anushka, her name is, and I think she was quoting another teacher, but I first heard this from Anushka. And she said, I think she was quoting the writer. I'm going to forget her name. I've read all her books. I'll get back to you on who it is. And this writer says, my mind is like a dangerous neighborhood. It's not a place I want to hang out in. It's a terrific quote, and so many of us can relate to it, that at least through some periods in each day, our mind is a dangerous neighborhood. It's filled with, self-doubt or anger or insecurity or unpleasantness or general grumpiness or worse. And we don't want to hang out there. So change the neighborhood. Redecorate, cultivate better neighborhoods. We have power to do that, thank goodness. Because otherwise we'd just be at the mercy of the mind. The Rottweiler, I love Rottweilers, by the way. This Rottweiler's grabbing a squeaky toy, remember? It's adorable. The Rottweiler grabbing the squeaky toy and going, "Rrrr." Don't let your mind be that. Let it be the Rottweiler that also comes and curls up in your lap, thinking it's a tiny little puppy, and you're like, oh, okay, buddy, you're squashing me. But love the mind. Let the mind be your friend. Bring it in alignment. Train it. Love it. And seek the 7 factors of enlightenment, not just mindfulness. So we'll practice together for 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll close. And in this 3 or 4 minutes, I invite you to be curious and look for any qualities of pleasantness in the mind or the breath as we breathe in and out, making some effort to concentrate just for 3 or 4 minutes. And when I ring the bell, be curious about the sound of the bell and whether there's any pleasantness or not to the tone of the bell. And we'll close with what's called a dedication of merit, where we set our intentions for ourselves and for others. By the merit of this strengthening activity of meditating together and hearing the Dharma, may we continue to cultivate the positive qualities of mind, mindfulness, curiosity, effort, pleasure, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity in our meditation, in our minds, in our lives, and in the world. May all beings be well, happy, and free from suffering. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Make a couple of brief announcements. If you'd like to stop and say hello, please do. I know I need to check. I need to talk to John about something. In terms of classes, if you're not on the Island Dharma newsletter list, you might like to be on the list, because I teach as often as I can here, usually at least twice a month, but my schedule's a little all over the map. So if you want to know the bouncing ball of schedule, it might be helpful to be on the newsletter list. Otherwise, Neil does post the schedule on the web page as well. If you're not on the list and would like to be, if you ask Neil, I'm sure he can take your email and add you to it. The next two classes are in March and not next weekend. We originally had a Sunday scheduled next weekend, but I had to change it. So 2 weeks from today, Saturday, March 9th, and the following Saturday after that, which I think is the 16th. Those are the two that are currently scheduled. We'll be adding some in April. I'm away at the end of March. The descriptions and registration for the summer retreats at the Hermitage on Denman Island are now live. The title was out and the dates were out, but you couldn't register yet. So that is in May. I forget the dates, around the 7th till the 12th or something. It's a Tuesday through a Sunday, I think. Shalane and I are co-teaching a retreat on the theme of healing and tranquility, utilizing white Tara and other meditations. Be there or be square. We've got a couple pretty cool things in mind. You might want to come. And then the annual and my favorite week of the year, I think, the 10-day retreat in August, beginning the second weekend in August, from a Friday night to 10 days later, the Sunday morning. That is also up and available. And probably more fun stuff to come, but for now, I think that's everything. Other than I'm giving a talk in 2 weeks. We'll put this out in the newsletter as well. It's a talk on my book, Buddha's Bedroom, Combining Buddha Dharma and Love Relationship Teaching. We're going to have quite a fun evening in Duncan, Monday the 11th of March at the Firehouse Wine Bar. So there'll be cocktails and wine available, and I'm going to give a different style of talk, emphasizing sex a lot more. And we'll have some prizes and giveaways, and it should be lots of fun. If you want to come, please do. I'll turn you over to Neil. Thank you, Neil, for hosting and making things happen this morning, and for always wearing great t-shirts.
And just wanted to add, we now have a little book on the back, so if you want to just write your email address, I then just take the slip and then add your emails. So it's always there now on the back. And the third option that I'm now getting much better at is the Facebook. So Facebook is now fully updated with all of the talks. So if you use Facebook, like that reminder, you can click like and then click on the events that you're going to, and it will remind you the day or whenever you check Facebook. And yes, just the usual reminder that Cheryl, it comes here completely freely on her own time, on her own money, and that is the traditional way that Buddha Dharma is taught. But we always encourage the idea that if you have the space within you and the funds, or even the time, that's the biggest thing that we're looking at right now, is just there's some challenges of opening up and things like that. So if you have extra time, please feel free to come and let us know, the planning committee. It would be wonderful. But there are 2 boxes on the table. The blue box is the donations, the dana that Cheryl would be receiving, and the purple box are the dana that would be helping us to pay for the rent for the space here. So if you have that within you, we welcome it.
Thank you. And I hope to see you all in 2 weeks, and enjoy your day. Look with curiosity for pleasure everywhere. Apply what you learned.
And I forgot to mention that if there's been luncheons that's been starting to organize after Dharma, so if you are interested, we could look at organizing a luncheon where we need to have lunch afterwards.
Do you mean today or in
yes,
general? Today? Great.
Yeah, so please speak with me if you are interested, and we can try organizing.
Perfect. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, everybody. Have a curious, pleasurable day. Yay, indeed.